I was handcuffed on my own front porch at 2 a.m. while the red and blue lights of two sheriff's cruisers painted the pine trees like a crime scene. The night air smelled of charcoal and lake water, and I stood there in my old flannel shirt, hands behind my back, while the woman who had called the cops laughed loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Arrest him," she shouted. "He's trespassing. He's a vandal. I'm the president of the Lakefront Homeowners Association, and I run this place." She had no idea who she was talking to. "My name is Tom Harlan. That cabin she called an abandoned eyesore was built by my grandfather in 1962. It's been in my family ever since. And the glass and steel monstrosity she lived in next door? That belonged to my family trust. She wasn't my neighbor. She was my tenant. But she didn't know that yet. It started 2 days earlier, on a Tuesday afternoon in late August. I'd driven up from Charlotte to spend a month at the lake house, my first real vacation in years. The place was exactly how I remembered it: cedar siding, stone fireplace, and a wide redwood deck overlooking Silver Lake. I was unloading a cooler of beer and steaks when a pearl-white Mercedes SUV rolled to a stop at the bottom of the driveway. Out stepped a woman in her late 40s, dressed like she was about to chair a board meeting. Cream blazer, tailored slacks, oversized sunglasses, and a leather binder under her arm. She looked at my 10-year-old Ford F-150 like it had personally offended her. "Good afternoon," she called, voice sweet as artificial sweetener. "I noticed the service vehicle. We don't usually get contractors on this private road, so I thought I'd make sure you weren't lost." I set the cooler down and wiped my hands on my jeans. "I'm not lost. I'm staying here." Her smile flickered. "Oh, you must be a relative of the old owners. We've been waiting for someone to address this property." She introduced herself as Evelyn Carter, president of the Silver Lake Homeowners Association. She handed me the binder. "We've been working hard to raise standards here," she said. "We're trying to attract the right kind of residents. People who value order and uniformity." I opened the binder. The document was titled Membership Agreement and Covenant of Compliance. It demanded a $2,500 initiation fee, $250 monthly dues, and a long list of rules. No pickup trucks in driveways, no visible alcohol on decks. All landscaping done by one approved company, conveniently owned by Evelyn's brother-in-law. I handed it back. "I appreciate the welcome, Evelyn, but I'm not joining. My grandfather bought this land free and clear in the 60s. There's no HOA on the deed." Her face changed. The polite mask cracked. "This isn't optional," she said. "Everyone signs. If you can't afford the fee, we can arrange payments. But you'll need to move that truck right away." I stepped back toward the door. "I'm not paying anything. And you're on my driveway. Please leave." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I have friends in the sheriff's office. I have friends in the county. You're either part of the solution or you're a problem. And I know how to handle problems." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Through the wood, I heard her heels stomp back to her car. The engine roared, tires spitting gravel. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning I woke to find my gate plastered with citations. Pink, yellow, and white notices taped in overlapping layers. Grass too long. Vehicle placement unsightly. Unauthorized refuse containers. The total came to nearly $2,800. I started ripping them down, but something caught my eye near the front tire of my truck. 3 roofing nails arranged in a neat triangle against the tread. If I'd backed out without looking, I'd have had 2 flats and been stranded. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was sabotage. I walked over to the property line and found Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, a widow in her late 70s, sitting on her back steps crying. I'd known her since I was a kid. Her old tabby cat, Muffin, rubbed against her ankles. "Tom," she said, wiping her eyes. "Evelyn came by this morning. She said if I don't pay the $6,000 road assessment fee, she'll cut off my water. She said Muffin is a nuisance animal and has to go by Friday or animal control will take him. He's 17, Tom. He's all I have left." I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. I knelt beside her. "She can't cut your water. That's illegal. And nobody's taking Muffin. I promise you that." I went back to the cabin and started building my defense. First, I installed 4 high-definition trail cameras around my property and 2 more overlooking Eleanor's yard. I called them the Watchmen. Then I waited. On the live feed, I watched Evelyn, dressed in a bathrobe and slippers, creeped through the brush and dropped several chunks of raw hamburger near Eleanor's garden. Even on infrared, I could see the strange sheen on the meat. I went out with gloves and a flashlight. The smell hit me, sweet, chemical, unmistakable. Antifreeze. I bagged the samples and sealed them. This wasn't just a dispute. This was a felony. I spent the next day digging. The citations were all made payable to Silver Lake Management LLC. A quick search of the North Carolina Secretary of State website showed the company was owned by Evelyn Carter. The registered address was the glass house next door. Then I found the smoking gun, a discarded pre-foreclosure notice in the ditch near her mailbox. She was 6 months behind on her mortgage. $48,000 past due. The bank was coming for the house. Everything clicked. The fake HOA wasn't about community standards. It was a shakedown. She was extorting money from neighbors to keep her own house from being foreclosed on. And the worst part? Some of that money, my tenant's money, was being paid to my family trust as rent. I pulled up the county GIS map on my laptop. Lot 12A, the glass house, was owned by the Harlan Family Trust. Lease agreement, Evelyn Carter, 1-year term, expiring August 31st. Clause 14. Immediate termination for criminal activity or conduct detrimental to the property or neighbors. She wasn't just a bully. She was my tenant. And her lease was about to end. I called my trust attorney in Charlotte. Pull the file on Lot 12A. We're not renewing. Draft a notice of termination for cause. I want it notarized and couriered to me by tomorrow. The next day, Evelyn distributed bright orange flyers announcing an emergency community meeting at the town hall gym. The flyer described a dangerous squatter occupying the old Harlan cabin, accused me of vandalism and threats, and urged residents to demand immediate action from the sheriff. She was trying to turn the neighborhood against me before I could turn it against her. That night, at 11:30 p.m., one of the watchmen caught another figure sneaking through my backyard, heading for the breaker box with bolt cutters. I hit the floodlight switch. The yard lit up like daylight. The man dropped the tool and tried to run, but he tripped and went face-first into the mud. I stepped onto the deck. You're on camera. Footage is already in the cloud. You can leave now, or I call the sheriff and you spend the night in jail. He pulled off the ski mask. It was the driver from the towing company Evelyn used to intimidate people. He was shaking. It was her, he said. She paid me $200 to cut your power so your evidence would be gone before the meeting. I made him a deal. Come with me to the meeting and tell the sheriff the truth, or face felony charges. He chose the former. The meeting started at 7 p.m. The gym was packed, 200 folding chairs, standing room only. Evelyn stood at the podium in a cream pantsuit, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, playing the victim. I've given everything to protect this community, she said. And in return, I've been threatened, harassed, even attacked. This man, this squatter, told me he'd burn my house down if I didn't stop enforcing the rules. The crowd murmured. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. I waited until she finished her performance. Then I walked down the center aisle in a charcoal suit I'd brought from the city. Heads turned. Whispers died. Evelyn saw me and froze. There he is, she shouted. He's here to intimidate us. Call the sheriff. I walked onto the stage, unplugged her laptop, and plugged in mine. The projector screen flickered to life. My name is Tom Harlan, I said, voice steady. I'm the trustee of the Harlan Family Trust. And I'm not here to burn houses. I'm here to return some stolen property. I started with the footage. The gym went silent as 200 people watched Evelyn drop poisoned meat in Eleanor's yard. Gasps rippled through the room. That's antifreeze-laced beef, I said. Dropped in a yard where a 17-year-old cat sleeps. That's a classy felony. Evelyn lunged for the microphone. Fake. Deep fake. He's a tech guy, he fabricated it. I clicked to the next slide. A flowchart of canceled checks from neighbors to Silver Lake Management LLC, tied to Evelyn's company, tied to the foreclosure notice. There's no HOA, I said. There never was. You've been writing checks to a shell company owned by Evelyn Carter. She used your money to pay her mortgage. The room erupted. People stood. Chairs scraped. Eleanor Hayes stood up, tears in her eyes. You took my savings, she said. You threatened my cat. Evelyn backed away. I was streamlining funds. For the greater good. I reached into my briefcase and placed the lease agreement on the projector. Clause 14, I said. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the podium to stay upright. "You can't," she whispered. "I have rights." The double doors opened. The county sheriff and 2 deputies walked in. They'd already received the evidence packet I sent earlier. "Evelyn Carter," the sheriff said, "you're under arrest for felony fraud, extortion, and animal cruelty." The cuffs clicked. She screamed the whole way out, about senators, about lawsuits, about how they worked for her. Nobody listened. The next morning, I watched from my porch as movers loaded her furniture into a truck under sheriff's supervision. She left in sweatpants and a hoodie, carrying nothing but a purse and a potted plant. She looked across the trees toward my cabin, saw me standing there, and held my gaze for a long moment. I raised my coffee mug in a quiet salute. "Goodbye." Later that week, I used the $12,000 security deposit she'd paid when she moved in, money she forfeited due to breach of lease, and wrote checks to every neighbor she'd fleeced. Eleanor got $6,000. The other families got their money back with interest. We dissolved the fake LLC, formed a real neighborhood association with no dues, just a phone tree and a monthly potluck. On Saturday evening, I fired up the grill. Neighbors came over with potato salad, smoked trout, and blueberry pie. Kids ran around the yard skipping stones off the dock. For the first time in years, the lake felt peaceful. We sat on the deck as the sun set, watching the water turn gold. "To the neighbors," I said, raising a beer. Everyone clinked bottles. Someone laughed. Someone else said, "Your granddad would have loved this." I looked at the empty glass house through the trees. It was just a building now, no lights, no arrogance. Just another property waiting for the next tenant. And I knew the next one would be carefully vetted. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with the story. It's a long one, but I wanted to tell it right. Now I'd like to hear from you. What do you think about the line between standing up to bullies and crossing into revenge? Was I justified in using every legal tool I had? Or does taking someone's home, even a bad tenant, feel too far? Have you ever dealt with an HOA or a neighbor who tried to control everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. Let's talk about power, fairness, and what happens when someone finally says enough. I'll be right here.